Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live podcast. I appreciate you being here. Let's start with a little music. You guys know this is Wednesday, the midweek. Happy Wednesday. And I can't wait for you guys to be here. Are you guys ready? Let's go.
Are you a curious student, eager to learn new skills and make your mark in the world? Or are you a professional seeking to advance your career and unlock your full potential? You need to be equipped with effective soft skills like communication, problem solving, teamwork, and more. The Level Up Academy by Doc Leland bridges the gap between education and employment through transferable skills training. Get the soft skills you need to be more effective at work.
Welcome, guys. Oh my gosh. Who is our first person? Of course, James. I don't know if it's James or Patrick that's on right now, but they will be here tomorrow's show. LinkedIn land has been gray lately, so I'm not even gonna bother of like getting stressed and nobody's here, but that's okay. Sister, thank you so much for being here. I have not talked to you, so I definitely need to talk to you. Chicken today. I need my mental well-being. I love the intro and overlays. Well produced. Trying. What's up, Lonnie? I'm so excited for this episode. Me too, right? Howdy. So let's go ahead and get to it because I have a lot to talk about in terms of what is happening. Let me share my screen. Yeah, let's go ahead and just share my entire screen and it's going to look all wacko. But this is basically, I don't know if you guys are able to see anything. Nope, you're still able to not see nothing. I wanted to show you guys what is happening, and I do have sponsors, but my PowerPoint is not. And my dog is screaming bloody murder. Let me see if I can share my screen through window. Are you guys able to see my PowerPoint at all or no? Probably not. I don't see my PowerPoint in there. And that's really sucky because I really wanted to share my screen in terms of, let's see. Okay, I think you guys are seeing it now. Yay. So basically, we're going to talk about podcasting and podcasters, right? And live streamers because Mark Zenzamich is actually a podcaster from Japan. Level Up Academy is going to be, I don't know, 15 months now since its inception last year as a dean of a university. That's why it's called Level Up Higher Education Edition. But notice that for the last 40 episodes, maybe, it's always been now leveling up my community throughout the world. And I'm super proud of that. Lua by DocLeland.com is my other website, and I have a couple websites. But if you want workshops for free to level you up, I offer free workshops every single month. For those of you who took the financial education with Troy, I still have your certificates and I'll send them by today. So don't worry, I didn't forget about you. I do provide certificates for work if you need professional development. So all of my live stream on LinkedIn goes to my YouTube, and right now it says that I have 1.7 subscribers. I actually am close to 2,500 subscribers. I've changed a bit in terms of SEO and tagging and description and all that good stuff. And I've seen boosting on the subscribers. So thank you so much. And I appreciate you if you're watching this for subscribing to my YouTube channel. I am going to add more videos in there. I'm also on a 10 series podcast, not this week, on audio rooms about students and student habits. Last week I did time management, I believe, and it's already on YouTube. LA Weekly, this is just more for credibility that basically my website, if you're one of my 50 inspirational, you will be up soon. So you'll know if you're in or not. I've been showing videos and things like that. I will put your name on there. So you will definitely show up on my website. And once you are there, magazines like LA Weekly has my website on there. Shout out Dave W also has my website on there. Same thing for Baby Boomer. Same thing for FeedSpot, right? And these are my 25 distribution channels. You're probably wondering, am I going to be automatically on the 73 nations and countries and 25 distribution channels if I'm a guest in your YouTube? And the answer is no. If you do not have a good audio, I can't extrapolate our conversation and put it on MP3. So hopefully all of my guests will have really good audio so I can put you in there. Okay. Book, it's so exciting because I'm on my 4th book and I'm really appreciating that. Like, I can't believe I do 2 books this year, maybe even 3. I don't know yet, but I'm going to concentrate on this upcoming book. Book 1 was my dissertation. If you're an HR person and you're looking for the difference between values, leadership, and culture of executive women in the Philippines and the United States. If you don't know, I am Filipino. That is the reason why it's Philippines, because I wanted to compare and contrast the two. Book 2 was about my, as a dean, and I have different of my people's thoughts on thought leadership, on how to create, how to publish a book or how to publish in journal articles and leadership, right? All of that is in here. I do want to warn you that that book is in 6 different languages and it's a little bit on the expensive side. They are about $46 for sure. And it's not that big. It's like 70, 80 pages, not even 100 pages, but there's a lot of information. And it's on APA 6. Writing, not MLA, and because pretty much everyone on that book who wrote are PhDs and DBAs. The 3rd book that we did just recently in July hit #1 international bestselling, and that is an anthology. That means there's about 30 authors, including myself, and we hit Amazon #1. And I'm hoping the next book will hit bestseller as well. And this is the new one, right? And our mastermind of this book, it's actually not too late. We have how to write everything on this weekend, guys. If you want to be part of a group of people who's driven, who has a lot to offer the world, and you know that you want to write a book and this is your first time, don't be afraid. If you know that this is your third book, don't be afraid. It's a different way of writing. Not only will you discover about your mad skills in writing, but also you'll know the structure of how Lonnie has done it. She is a magical person when it comes to book because she has a marketing mind. But it will be called Rattle Awake. Okay. And basically, it says over the past 5 years, what is the single biggest event that caused you to completely change your perspective? For me, I'm going to be talking about my topic will be in education, how K to 12, really. I used to live in Virginia, and I was so shocked to find out that if a parent speak up to the Board of Education, that they will be labeled as a terrorist as a parent because we care about the future of our children. Hello? So that would be definitely my topic. And I have a lot of research that I've done. But again, I'm used to writing a different way. So I'm going to learn so much from Mad Skills Woman over here. And if you need more information, go to thirdpartyinsights.com for Lonnie Ray, like literally, or just DM her, right? Here, if you have a cell phone, go ahead and scan it. I made a QR code on how to do it. And we are projecting it out there that we will be part of the bestseller. Okay. So that is all I'm doing. And she also will have a podcast about it as well. Another sponsor I have is TossieBrands.com. I can't say enough. And I'm hoping that my sister out there who's traveling to Florida, by the way, from Oregon, please be safe in that. If you type in Level Up 23, you get 30% off on any of your purchases for this pillow. And these are pillowcases, okay? I love this pillow. I have it, and it stopped me from snoring. So I can breathe better because of that little bump in my neck. It actually opens up my throat a little bit and my tongue goes out so I don't have to snore and I feel good the next day. So if you want to check it out, it's TossieBrands.com, and Level Up 23 is your code to get that 30% off. Thank you, sister. And you can use it in many different ways. Oh, and if you fly on airplanes, hello, definitely. These are the different ones that you will see, right? Another sponsor I have is my sister, Sandra. If you have been to Mexico, or if you're scared of going to Mexico because you don't know a place you're going to go to, you don't know how to do it, this is the website right here, bit.ly.viva level up. Tell Sister Sandra that you saw this on Level Up podcast. She'll give you some discounts in there. But this is the place, this is her place that she owns for Airbnb. And check it out. It is in Mazatlan, Mexico. Okay. So she'll give you discounts if you mention, yeah, I saw it on CJ's podcast for sure. So if you need that vacation, you're stressed out and you're like, I don't know where to go in Mexico, I don't know what's happening, this is the place that you need to be. All right. Of course, my sister Nicole, right? She's the Gifted Bipolar. She does a lot of like social media content creation, ghostwriting. She also does promotions. And she is definitely gifted when it comes to book covers. If you're thinking of doing a book and you don't have anyone to do your book cover, she is it. And if you need graphics for banners and things like that, or carousel, she is it. And I can't speak highly enough, right? She also has an audio room on Sunday at 7 a.m. PST, guys. It's like, 11 a.m. EST? My sister Christine just had a journal on Amazon. If you are a teacher, or if you know a teacher and needs to create harmony in the classroom, just needs support, she and Claudia actually just created a journal for teachers. She put 29 plus years, but she's been a K-12 teacher for 30 years. Bless her heart. right? Everyone is quitting except for my sister Christine, for reals. She wants to educate the children and she teach kindergarten. And she shared her room. It was so cute. My sister Susanna, of course, she's gonna have her own book. I believe she already posted it. If you're not connected with her, please support her. And she is good at listening for sure, especially with me lately. But she basically is the expert when it comes to moving beyond boxes. If you don't know what that means, go ahead and DM her. All right. And then, of course, sleekbio.com Lua to keep up with what I'm doing. Everything is posted on there, including discounts and things like that. Again, Lonnie Ray is our lady of the moment for book. So, are you guys ready? Okay. Are you guys ready to meet my brother from Japan? Another mother. Okay, are you guys ready? I don't know. I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's ready. I'm looking at him right now in the green room. He doesn't see it, but I see it. Oh, he's smiling.
I'm ready.
Yay! Oh my God. So many
Yeah.
comments from James and Patrick. It's hilarious. How are you doing?
I'm good. And technically I'm not from Japan. I'm
You're
not.
right.
I know it's hard to tell, but I'm not actually Japanese. I was born in
No,
the
it's
United
very
States.
hard. I can't really tell though.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's start with where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from Alabama, but yes, I do reside in Japan, and I will probably be here for the rest of my life. So technically, or sort of, I'm from Japan, but I'm actually James. I was reading the comments, and I think James said he came up with a moniker like Alapan or something. So I'm a transfer. Yeah, I'm from
Hmm.
Alapan.
That's a push. That's a push is like not currently, but it's flashed. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Look at Mark is screaming over there. It's gonna be their turn tomorrow. If you have watched my show, this is always my first question. Think back
Okay.
20 years ago and find within your timeline some of the significant changes in your life that got you here where you are today.
Well, how long is your show?
Um,
do we
40
get four? Do we have
minutes
4 hours?
I'm like 45 minutes now.
No, I knew about 4 hours ago. Let's see. Think back 20 years ago and find within your time. So you're saying within the last 20 years, or
Yeah,
like?
within the last 20 years, like you started in Alabama, right? And then I kind of know your history, but the people who are here, some of them might not know, and they want to know how did you end up in Japan?
20 years ago. Let's see, I was 27, 20 years ago. Long story short, on how I wound up in Japan. um, when I was a little kid, well, the short answer to that, why I'm in Japan now, is a woman. And that just answers that question. But the longer version is, when I was a kid, I grew up in Alabama, and there's not much to do in Alabama, and I was a boy, so I was interested in martial arts, and so I studied judo and aikido. And when you're doing your reps, for whatever reason, in the dojo in Alabama, we're counting in Japanese. So ichi ni san chi go, and so I could count to 10 in Japanese. And fast forward, I get to college, and I went to the University of Alabama. It's a big school. You could minor in Tagalog if you wanted to, and I chose Japanese because I'm like, hey, why not? I can count to 10. Well, that was pretty dumb. That's all I could do, and but
I can
yeah,
count to 10.
yeah, I might as well take Japanese since I can count to 10 already. I've got that I can skip that day of class, and but I stuck with it, and it was my minor, and through that, I developed more of a passion for the country, and it was my first job right out of college. I came here for a year to teach at junior high schools, and then I went back to I came in I came and went several times. So I left, went to grad school at Florida State, go Seminoles, and then I came back in '04 and '05, and I taught at Kanagawa University and at Tokyo University of Science. And I left again and became a lawyer. And anyway, I said long story short, and it sounds like long story long. Essentially, what happened is, and when I was here in '04 and '05, I lived in Tokyo, and I met who is my wife now. We didn't get married then, but we dated, and I left, went on to law school, but we kept in touch. And then in around 2018, we just started talking more. And I said, well, why don't you come visit me? I was back in Alabama by then. And she did, and met my family. Everything went well. And then in 2019, she said, well, why don't you come visit me in Japan? And so I did, and I just never left.
Hmm. You left your heart in Japan. Actually, no, you didn't leave that because you're from Alabama and now you're in Japan. So let me go back to like a lot of my friends I was talking to before this show. They're like, okay, so who's going to be there tomorrow? And I was like, Zen Sandwich. She's like, he makes sandwiches? And I'm like, no, no, he makes Japanese paper. Wait, he's a podcaster? Yeah. And he's a lawyer? How does that even like relate? And said, I
Well, I
don't know,
don't.
you gotta come and see. So talk to us about like, okay, now you were in Japan.
Hmm.
You had done your school as a lawyer, right? We talked about it a little bit
Yeah. Yeah.
briefly. What is happening?
Okay. So, and I practiced law for 10 years. So I've had this, I'm in my third career pivot, but essentially. I was an educator up until I went to law school, and then was a practicing lawyer. At first, I was a prosecutor, an assistant district attorney in upstate New York. Then I left there and went back to Alabama and got a job at a big firm in their securities law department. So we were representing Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, and in cases like that. And you know, I found out that just practicing law is not. I like to sleep well at night, and I can't do that and practice law at the same time. Uh,
Oh,
So
okay.
I was on my way out of practicing law when my wife Haruka, that's her name, when Haruka and I were rekindling our conversations. It was the timing was perfect because I'm was sort of done with practicing law and looking for my next career pivot anyway. So here I am.
Don't give credit to that bum.
Well, oh, it's Pat. I've been calling him James. I did think that was James actually.
I
Okay.
know.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Listen, okay, you guys are so funny. Now, see, when I was growing up, I've always wanted to be a judge. And my grandma's like, yeah, you're going to be a good judge. And I actually went to a point where I was going to go to Malibu for a JD. I took the LSAT, I scored in the top 1%. And one of my teachers that was in, I think it's from New York, and then he let me meet some judge at that time that was visiting him. I had a lawyer friend. His name was Mauricio. He was actually Italian, and he was friends with one of the oldest judges in the Supreme Court. It was in his house. I don't know how that
Mhm.
happened. And so I was talking about like, I was chipper and I wanted to be a judge and all this. And he's like, yeah, knowing you for the last 4 years of your life, you're going to get eaten alive. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, you're too good hearted. Not all lawyers are going to be making it, right? And I never understood that because I always thought lawyers, you get to be a lawyer first, then you become a judge, right? Like that's really where the going. And she's like, yeah, but it's not that easy as you think it is in your head. And so he would take me to court, just the local courts and just see like juvenile cases and things like that. And then
Mhm.
after about 4 cases, I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't think I could do it. It's not that you're not smart. It's just that in your heart, I don't think you can. And when you said
Yeah.
that,
Yep.
I put a smile on my face because it brought me back to that time, right?
Yep.
And yeah, it was just crazy. Now let's talk about your life as a paper maker.
Yeah.
Talk to
Well,
me
wait,
about.
can I can I address that real quick about the law?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's true. That's what happened to me in both instances. So my first job was as a prosecutor, and I worked for a district attorney's office where there were 7 ADAs, 7 assistant district attorneys, and then the DA. And trust me, I was the ADA you wanted to get because I had a heart, and I got tons of cases. I pissed off the police. So I'm supposed to be working with the police. The police, arrest someone. They do the paperwork, and that paperwork winds up on my desk, and then I'm supposed to.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm supposed to prosecute them in court. Well, I would be looking at the paperwork, and I'm like, this is not. You shouldn't have arrested this kid in the first place. And so I would like go in front of the judge, and say, the people request that in the interest of justice that the court dismisses this charge. And the judge was with me 99.9% of the time, said so ordered, click. And then the police would find out like that I didn't prosecute the case that they had like spent 3 hours doing the paperwork on. So, but I stood my ground. The cops would come to me and say, "Hey, what's up? Why do you need to prosecute that?" And I'm like, "Why did you arrest the guy? Why wouldn't you just let him go, man? It was a kid smoking a joint in the park. You're going to ruin his college career because he's going to lose his financial aid, and you're just some Barney Fife that wants to, arrest everybody." Anyway, I digress. But
No, that's
uh,
actually good because that's the reason why when I looked at all the juvenile cases and when my professor at that time saved me from all that heartache. Like I really appreciated it. And then I wanted to be a local news broadcaster. And my teacher showed me that because I was like, yeah, I want to, I was an editor. I was a chief editor and I wrote for this newspaper and all that. And she's like, yeah, you're so bubbly and cheap. That's great. But here's the thing. You're not independently able to just post and write whatever you want. There's a
right,
big
right,
guy up there saying, nah, CJ, 2 days, 2 weeks, doesn't matter. Don't write it. And I'm
yep.
like, what do you mean? What do you mean don't write it? I can't. And she's like, no. And so all of my dreams and aspirations when I was young, I'm like, oh man, I'm just going to be a bum when I grow up because all the things that I want to do,
I'm
I
working on
can't
that.
do. So that hits home. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm so glad you said that.
yeah. And I mean, similarly, when I went on to the next job, I thought, okay, I'm going from criminal law to uh, civil practice, and I'm going to work in securities law. That's great. But then I'm defending big banks against little people, and I'm like, we're just destroying little people. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this was not the right profession for me. But anyway,
Yeah, that's true. I think I have another friend. She's actually going to be in TED Talk. She's from Australia. She's coming down in September. I'm hoping I can see her. She's going to go in Long Beach. She said she was a corporate lawyer.
mhm.
From the outside, she looks glamorous. She said she made a ton of money, but she would end up in the emergency room every week because she was sick to her stomach.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, the
Hey,
stress was just too much.
by the way, we were talking before we went on air, and I said I'm not a very good salesman. I said I don't really sell myself very well, and you were saying, you got to put yourself out there. So I'm going to take your advice right now, Dr. CJ. I also have just been asked and invited to give a TED talk. I'm so excited.
When is it, Mark?
It'll be in January. It'll be TEDx Awaji, and Awaji is near Kobe, is the nearest big city. But yeah, I'm
Wait,
excited.
in January.
January, I think it's January 28th.
I have a family in Kobe. I've been in Kobe.
Oh yeah.
When you're in Kobe, please have Kobe beef. Okay.
Oh, I can get it here, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no, it has to be at Kobe because
okay.
I don't know what it is with it. I went to Tokyo to get Kobe. I swear, maybe it's in my head. That their Kobe beef is just so much yummier. I don't know, like it melts.
Well, I mean, it is world renowned. They do like all the cows they're not only like grass fed and stuff, but they're like massaged and all the stuff.
Yeah, and they give them sake to calm down. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I want to be a cow. I mean, I don't want to be murdered at the end, but man, they spoiled those cows. I
Yeah.
was loving that. So, talk to me about the paper making. I know you said that's your wife's business, but let's talk about that because there's a lot of people out there, like, including my kids, and me.
Mm.
I would pay big money for Japanese paper. If you guys don't know the difference, you need to know the difference. The paper is just like, oh, it's so smooth and it's so pretty. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's we make it by hand. I mean, it's really completely different than, paper you're going to get at Office Max, whatever. It's not machine processed paper. We actually grow trees like you can't see, but right out that window, it's dark here. It's like 1:30 in the morning. But we have like lines of trees, of Mitsumata trees, and we harvest them in the winter, and then we steam them, and we pull the bark off, and we have to clean that. And there's a huge long process. It actually is going on all year round that we're making paper. And yeah, it was her business, but it's really odd for her too. to be making washi. She I met her in Tokyo. We were both urbanites. We were, I'd lived in Manhattan in New York City. I'd lived in Los Angeles. I'd lived in London, and in Tokyo is where I met her. She had been in Tokyo all her life, and then here we are in the countryside. There was a program that the Japanese government wants to continue like historical, cultural things, and so there was an opportunity. Basically, they'll set her up with a house, but she'll be like an apprentice and learn traditional Japanese washi making. And she did that. She was already 3 or 4 years in when I showed up. So she's 7 years into it. I'm 4 years into it. And yeah, I mean that's what we do. We make paper. I never thought I'd be a paper maker.
You never know. Like you said, it's like it just pivots. But now I would not want to meet you when you were a lawyer. You probably look stressed and like, get out of my face right now.
I've always been a pretty happy-go-lucky guy, but you know, I don't know. Maybe I was better at arguing back then, so maybe you wouldn't have wanted to meet me.
No, I've had some of my friends like they're so stressed. Like I am one of well, my mom's been married a couple times, but my stepdad, the second stepdad, he actually still is probably an engineer for Chevron. He basically does the mixing for all of the tech and all of the stuff in Chevron. And when he would come home, yeah, right, he was like always working out, and he would come home. You can tell if he was having a bad day
Yeah.
because he's Italian and his hands just flies all over.
Yeah,
I'm like,
of
oh,
course.
dinner is not ready. Mom, can we go to the beach? Because they're always like. But I think when he went on vacation, he can take like 2 months vacation, and he was the most relaxed guy ever. So I think definitely your job can affect you. Now let's move towards podcasting.
All right.
How did that even like get into the mix from?
Yeah, well, so I was asked by an organization here in Japan that puts out a blog. It all started with a blog, and what happened was uh, they asked me would I contribute some articles for the blog. I said sure, and they published them, and I was happy about it. But then I was looking at their website, their blog, and I thought I can do better than this. So I thought on the side I'm going to start a blog, my own blog, and I'll publish my own articles. I don't need to put them on your page. I'll put them on my own page. I did that, and it was called Zen Sandwich, zensandwich.com, still is. And and what happened was I had the idea. I listen to podcasts all the time. I've always listened to podcasts for years. And I thought, well, I will start. My first idea was I'll start a podcast to supplement the blog. But what happened was the podcast took over. I mean, it was. I'm not saying it was wildly popular right out of the gate, but it definitely attracted more attention at a faster rate than the blog was. The blog was just another blog out of the 5 billion blogs that are already out there. And I think there's 3 million podcasts out there, but the podcast had more success. So now everything, I've pretty much abandoned the blog. There's still some old articles there, but the podcast, I mean, the website just became, a place to put the podcast. So, yeah. So there's that element to it. There's one more little element that I'll explain, and that's this. And I tell people when people ask, like, why did you start a podcast called Zen Sandwich? And I already had the website up for that name, but I, the Gandhi quote, be the change that you want to see in the world. Okay. I wanted to be the podcast that I wasn't hearing. I wanted to, well, that's the washi tab on the
I know.
stuff we make. But the yeah, I wanted to be the podcast that I wasn't hearing in the world, because anytime you went to a Zen podcast, it would just put you to sleep. So I'm gonna be a good, fun podcast, and so hopefully I am. There you go.
Yeah, and I think this is your website, right?
Yeah, that's the blog part. So all that stuff's kind of secondary. Yeah, that's I wrote that 2.5 years ago, but I stand by it. I reread it every once in a while. And well, there's my wife. This is her.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's so pretty. Boss of the editor, of course, right?
Right.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
There you
That's
go.
so cool. Contributor.
Yeah.
Casey's
Those
out there.
yeah, those are just some folks that have written for me in the past.
Wow. And this is what your paper, right? You guys make?
Yeah. Yeah. She does the really fancy artistic stuff. And then so, really we can do anything custom made. Well, see, you see the baby shoes there. I
Yeah.
put art so that no one would try to order the baby shoes and actually use them. So they're artistic in nature. But yeah, the baby shoes, and there's a dress that goes with them that have been in a museum actually been in a couple of museums here in Japan.
Wow. That is so cool. And I love postcards. And we have what is that? Not Miniso. Is it Miniso? No, Daiso. They
Yeah.
do sell papers like this for like
Mhm.
weddings and birthdays, Japanese paper. And I
Yeah.
love Japanese paper. So when my kids were actually little, I actually teach origami for 5-year-olds.
Oh, yeah.
I teach origami. I have a lot of Japanese origami paper because
Yeah.
it calms me down when I'm stressed out. I'm like, because I'm not thinking about anything. I'm like, oh wow, okay, we fold it here. We make frogs. We made grasshopper. And
That's amazing. That's good.
yeah, I was that type of mom. Like when my kid was 5, I would volunteer. I would hang out to the point where the principal, I would be crying because my daughter, when she was 5, she said she'll never read, she'll never go to school. And then I put her to school. She didn't even say bye to me. So I cried in the parking lot. And then the principal's like, Mrs. Leland, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I just have allergies. Like, because I didn't want to look. And he's like, well, would you like to volunteer? We can, have a parent. I'm like, sure. Where would I volunteer? It's like kitchen. I'm like, yeah, I can bake. They're like, no, you just, pour whatever. I'm like, sure. And then I would go on, lunch table, and the teacher's like, yeah, do you know anybody? I need some like art, or and I'm like, I can do origami because that's what I did with my kids when I homeschooled them. And so
Yeah.
every single day, first hour, I would do origami class with the kids, and we just had fun. So that is actually really cool that you guys do paper. Now, what were the initial challenges that you faced when you launched your podcast? Like, how did you overcome them?
Well, once again, how long is this episode? Yeah. But I did overcome them. The In a nutshell, the biggest obstacle was I didn't know anything. I didn't zero. I mean, all I had up at that point was my website. So I had to learn how to do that from scratch. So I listen to podcasts all the time, and I thought, well, okay, how do I get started? So, of course, you go to YouTube, you start watching little videos and stuff, and you find out how you can get a host and how they can distribute your content. That's why Zen Sandwich is on Apple and Spotify or wherever you want to look. And but I had to learn. I had to learn audio editing, video editing, all of it. I didn't know any of that stuff. I had never done any of that kind of stuff. So it was just learning from, I was basically a monkey, a caveman trying to learn how to do a podcast. But it's the great thing about being in the 21st century that all of that information is available. It's free. You just have to be studious. You just have to go and find it because there's a lot of crap information too. You got to find the good information. So you got to sift through a lot of the junk. And then, but there's some gold out there that will teach you like how to use Audacity. That's an open source
That's
free.
all I use.
Yep. And it does everything I need. I don't even know why I would buy expensive audio. I have had people. I've had for the 2.5 years. I've had people contact me and say, "Dude, your audio is awesome. How do you do it?" And I'm like, Audacity. It's free. You could do it too. You just got to learn how to do it.
Yeah,
That's
and
it.
they
But
just have their updates too. That's what I did. So I actually went to YouTube and I counted, okay, 85 hours before I started my podcast. I was so intimidated. I was so scared. And I looked at all, and then I forgot the guy, but he does really good technical on Rodecaster.
mhm.
And I was convinced that want, and I still use the Rode right now, and I upgraded a little bit on my mic, but I didn't have a budget. I'm on a teacher's salary. So I was like, honey, can I have this for my birthday or like an early birthday gift? Because it's like $1,000 for the whole,
Oh, Rode is top of the line. Yep, I know.
Yes, like, oh my god, and I still don't know. And this is a Roadcaster one, not even the two. I still don't know most of the buttons, but I know the basic button that I need to do podcasting.
I'll tell you, this is funny. I was on a podcast. His name, he doesn't run in the similar circles that we do with the Hounds of Business and everything, but it's a guy named Jeff Eichler. He runs in it. I run in two circles on LinkedIn, the Hounds of Business one, and then there's another one called Biz Catalyst that you may have seen their little icon on people's profiles, but there's not a lot of crossover, but I happen to be the one crossover. Anyway, I was on his podcast. He has been around for 5 years. He's got like 300 episodes, top equipment and everything. I was on his, and then he contacted me a week after our episode came out. He did the editing on it and everything, and he said, "What mic do you use?" He said, "Because your audio is maybe the best that I've heard of everybody I've interviewed." I'm like, "It's a Samson Q2U," and again, like I also was operating on a limited budget, so I just did the research. I just went on YouTube and just said, "What's the best mic for podcasting?" And I didn't just take the advice of the first video. I probably watched 5 hours of mic comparisons, and to get the most bang for your buck, it was like it just came down to this one, and I'm thrilled about it.
Yeah. Is it a USB or no?
Yeah, it's just USB. It's not even. I have the. It comes with the. If I want to, I don't even know what you call that additional jack. If you want to plug it into the soundboard or something, like
Uh-huh.
I can do that. I've got the extra wire for that, but this is just a USB.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I always wonder, because I try to get I have a game, and I told my husband, I'm like, I'm gonna open another YouTube channel just for my gaming because I do video games, but I don't ever go to Twitch to do it.
Mm.
And my husband's like, I think you're really mature to do video game videos on YouTube. I'm like, "Ugh, you see Wrinkle, even though I'm also you see Wrinkle," and he started laughing about that. And I was like, "Oh, you're rude. I'm gonna need another husband instead that supports what I want to do," And he started laughing and looking at my equipment. I'm like, never mind, I take that back. But as far as Hounds of Business, let's talk about that because Sia is so funny. She's like, "I'm triple book. Want to drop a note that I love you
Yeah, I
guys."
saw that. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I could see the comments too, and I do want to acknowledge Lonnie Ray, who's there, and she said she gave me a nice little compliment. She said I was really good. Well, she used a little fire icon. You're really fire with editing. So again, so Lonnie Ray, like I knew nothing. I had to learn that from scratch, and I do it on an open source free software. I didn't pay for my video editor either. So
No, what do you use for video editing?
I
I
use
don't.
one called Shotcut, and it's still free, and they offer updates. Like I said, it's open source, so like people contribute to it and make it better. And I learned what I needed to get done. Could I learn more? Sure, of course, but and it can do more than what I do with it. But I learned how to do what I wanted to do. Well, I'm not going to make the next Star Wars movie, so all I want to do is like edit a couple of podcasts. So I learned what I needed to do with it. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
don't edit live stream on YouTube. I don't even have the time, even if I wanted
yeah,
to.
me
So it's
either.
live, and I'm like, just go for it. Just, and it's authentic because whatever happens in the show, it happens live on YouTube. But what I love about podcasting is meeting people like you who does really cool things that elevate our community. Like they've seen some of your, podcast show, but they really don't know who you are and what you do. And why, right?
Yeah.
Uh, when you're launching your podcast, like someone's thinking about it, like, hey, I do a blog and I wanted to do a podcast. What are some of the steps that you could provide for someone who's just starting? What would be the first thing they should do?
Uh, I do their homework because I think a lot of people jump right into podcasting. They think that you just hop on Zoom, hit record, talk about anything you want, and then you're gonna be Joe Rogan next week. No, 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 none of that is true. None of that happens. It is way. I mean, you could do that. You're not going to be Joe Rogan. You're not going to have an audience at all. In fact, I used to. My biggest advice for newbie podcasters would be you don't necessarily have to script your episodes, but at least prepare. Like write out some questions. If you're going to interview someone you don't know, do your homework. Don't just show up and just like, well, what do you want to talk about? Because I can just go to Starbucks and overhear the people next to me if I just want to overhear somebody's conversation. Give me, like, you have questions planned. You've already had them, ready to roll. And I do that if I have someone that comes on my not on my LinkedIn lives. I do kind of wing those, but I only have like an audience like 30 people on those LinkedIn lives. I've got hundreds that listen to each episode that I have, and on Zen Sandwich. So I come prepared. If I'm going to do a 30-minute interview, I'm going to do 4 hours of prep maybe, and so I'm not trying to scare a newbie podcaster. But I do want to make people aware, if you actually want to be good at it, it requires a lot more time investment than you think.
It does. The preparation, the after. I was actually scared to do a live LinkedIn, quite honestly, in my head, because honestly, I'm teaching a class now, solopreneur, on how to do their own live show. And there's a lot that I wanted, to the point where I wanted to throw all of my computers at home, because LinkedIn makes it so hard. If you make a mistake, you literally have to do it again. And the problem is, if you already invited people and people are like excited and all of a sudden it's gone, they're like, CJ, what happened? I'm like, LinkedIn happened and I happened. So I'm going to have to delete that. Right. And so do it again. So what I do is I just create a list. Like, this is the first thing you need to do and learn. There's a lot more, like going through Canva, having the intro, creating the background, creating the name, creating this thing, like there's a lot more involved. So for me, I think podcasting was because it was for my students. And when I have a straight mission, which is to level up the world through education, my mindset changed to, what do I need to help the world, rather than just talking about whatever's right. Because we don't know, like you said, what's going to happen. It's good too to just chill and talk about whatever.
Sure. Well, yeah, and to get at that aspect of the question of like, why do I do it? It ain't for the paycheck. I mean, I do have a Patreon page or whatever that helps out keep the show going, but I'll tell you why I do it. It's because, in fact, at times when growth wasn't happening as fast as I wanted it to, and maybe I'm getting frustrated, I'm like, why am I doing this? It would be around those times I would get an email from a stranger, like not just like from somebody I know from LinkedIn. It would just be, I don't know how they found me. And they would say, but I'll give out my email address, zenSandwich@gmail.com. And somebody from Morocco will like email me and say, hey, I really, what you said, it changed, it made my day, or it made my life better, or it changed my perspective on something. And I actually got one today before this. I won't, out the person. It is a LinkedIn person, but they told me, hey, I want you to know, I listened to this particular episode. It was only an episode I did recently called Take Nothing Personally. And this person wrote me a message and said, hey, I listened to that episode, and it really made my day, because I had a kind of altercation last night. He said, and listening to your episode, it made it all go away. So anyway, my point is, when I get a positive message that I help someone like that, I keep going. I mean, that's what drives me to keep this podcast going.
Thank you for saying that. I'm sure if not, you haven't listened to it. The reason that I even kept going, I was actually, remember, Level Up Higher Education Edition. I haven't changed the logo. Even though I don't talk so much about higher ed and student engagement anymore, because I'm no longer a dean. I wanted to close my podcast last May, because it's for my students and my faculty, but I no longer am a dean. So 2 weeks before I was going to close, I got an email from a lady that I don't know, from Afghanistan. And she said she wanted to kill herself and her son.
Wow.
She was married since she was 13. She's in her mid-20s, and her life was her husband and her family. But her husband had to go to war in Ukraine and left her and her son. So she felt abandoned and lost. She's like, life is just over. And for us, we can't think like that, because we are in a different environment, different culture, different circumstance, right? You can't judge people from their circumstance. kid you not, I did not open that after that little subject for about 2 3 days because I was like, great, I just murdered someone. Like she's just giving me a goodbye note. I was scared. I had an anxiety,
Yeah,
and
that's
then I
horrible. Yeah, but
my girlfriend, I said, should I read? And he's like, yeah, you don't you want to know what you said that triggered her? I was like, oh God. So I went to go read, and she literally said, thank you for saving my life. When you're talking about your own journey, episode 1 and episode 2, about your student who is recently divorced at 50, she was told by her ex-husband, like, she's dumb, she's stupid, she's never going to amount to anything and all that. And when she went to get her bachelor's for the first time over 50, she felt good about herself. She had an inkling that maybe she ain't stupid after all, and she
mm,
showed her kids that, hey, mommy still has some life left to, go and pursue your education. And I thought that was really an inspiring story. And she
yeah,
said, maybe I will go back to school and go back to my parents' house, and then pursue my own interest in education. I want to be a teacher. And
mm,
that conversation, literally every time I'm like, I don't want to edit, I don't want to post, I don't want to do
mhm,
this, I have so much thing to do. I think back about that email and I could never erase it in my head. And I
mm.
keep going because of that one email. So if you guys email all of your podcasters, live streamers,
Yeah,
something like that, we do see it and we do love them because it makes a huge difference in our day to day, especially if we're having some challenges on our life. You're like, yeah, this is totally worth it. Because, like you said, we don't get paid to do it unless you have little sponsors here and there. But other than that, it's not going to pay your mortgage. You know what I mean? Unless,
right.
like you said, you're going to be Joe Rogan. We're going to get there someday. We're just going to
Yeah.
keep going. Right?
Well, the best, like, so I do have like a Patreon page, and the best was when I started getting people that I don't know. Because at first, like, it was friends and family that it was really friends. I don't even have any family that was contributing, but like, a few friends who are still to this day, they are Patreon supporters. But that's all who was there for me at the beginning, of course, because you're nobody at first. And then I started to get, and I don't have a lot, but I started to get people that I'm like, I don't know who this person is. And then suddenly they're giving me $3 a month or whatever. And it's only $3, but still, it's for a stranger to like your stuff enough that they're like, I want to help this guy out. I'm going to buy him a cup of coffee each month. That keeps me going. That stuff. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
You just put a caveat. I'm in Japan. It's more expensive.
You have to say it's actually more than $3. Hey, I'm grateful for every little bit, and
Yeah.
also, when they sign up for Patreon, I've got some videos that are behind the paywall that I say, like, I don't expect anybody. I don't have an expectation for anybody to stay forever. So even if you just sign up and you paid $3 for 1 month and then you got out the next month, hey, I'm happy you showed up. You made my day.
That is so good because we are always grateful. I don't. A lot of people give me suggestions. You should do this. You should do that. And to me, it's I want to level up my community, and not everyone can afford or can have extra money to give, right?
Right.
And I think information should be free. There are things that you have to pay for, which I also sell courses anyway. But I think that elevating my community gives me such a pleasure of my heart. Like, wow, this is such a good conversation and people can learn from it.
Mhm.
Before we end, I have two questions. This is my second to last. Could you describe your podcast niche or focus? Like, what topics do you enjoy discussing there the most?
Well, I think that's a great question because and it's similar. I'll just answer it the way I answered the more typical question I get, which is, what is Zen sandwich? Like, why did you name it that? And so there's the Zen part of it. So that's the niche, I guess. And I do incorporate in that in the show, but I didn't want it to scare people away. Like, well, I don't care about a Zen podcast. Well, come for the sandwich because I cast the net wide, and I've interviewed MMA fighters, photographers, authors, musicians. I interviewed the first female game ranger in South Africa. Like, just stories that you don't typically get other places. And I tell people that or people that are going to come on the show, and they're like, "Well, I'm not a Buddhist," or like, you don't have to. You bring yourself. I'll bring the Zen, and we'll have a conversation. So that's the niche. It's Zen, but it's a lot of sandwich too. It's a lot of just laughs, and I look for one of two things when I look for a guest. I look for a good story or an expert, and sometimes they overlap, and that's a real gem. But I look for someone who's an expert in something, or someone who's just got a really good story, and either way, it winds up usually being a good show.
Yeah. Paul said that he doesn't script, or I don't script anything. I think that a good conversation should just flow. You can ask Mark. I haven't given him any questions or any script. I just like to be prepared. I am a very structured person. If you don't know me already, I'm like, and because my brain has always been like that within myself. Okay, so I've been
Yeah.
trying, but usually what I do is I have a framework that I will work
Right.
with, but I'm definitely flexible and open mind to changes.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just to chime in on that. I'm not saying script out your show unless you're going to do a solo. But when I
yeah,
do a solo episode, I do script it out. I don't just sit up here and just wing it. But the only thing I script is my intro for the person, and then after that, it's really bullet points. Like these are the things I want to talk about. But just at least have an outline.
yeah, it says, Mark, I'm curious for you. What insights do you have for someone who's switching from speaker to host?
What does that mean from speaker to host though?
No idea.
Okay.
Paul, explícame. Explain more about that. James is so funny. They're going to be here tomorrow. It's going to be a hoot. We'd had similar people have reached out to us as well about how we have touched and changed their lives, telling survivor stories and their successes. See, this is why I love you guys, all of you out there, because anytime you level up your community, I'm dancing. Okay, that's my legacy. That literally, and I want that impact is anytime you have a heart that you're leveling up your community through conversations, through actions, whatever, I'm celebrating. Just know CJ's in the right side, just woo woo, singing and dancing there, okay? Because that's what I love. Has changed lives from sad to hopeful. Exactly. We have a lot of people that's going through a lot right now. We don't need any more negativity, quite honestly, okay? And I love, the Hounds of Business and Mark. What do you call Mike again? Maybe
Mike Afterburner. Yeah.
Mike is not here, so we can talk crap now. Just
Oh,
kidding.
I'm gonna keep calling it because it's easier to pronounce than whatever Ashton Kutcher last name, whatever that last thing is. I'm just like, yeah, you're Mike Afterburner. That's fine. That's enough.
Oh my gosh, Japan is the new hot market. Big money income. Deflation is over. Hot, hot, hot in the years coming. Oh, you're so funny. Okay, maybe we should go to Japan in January and go to Kobe. Okay.
There you go. Let's have the Hounds of Business conference in
Yeah.
in Kobe.
Oh, Patrick, it's gonna be a hoot afterburner. Oh my gosh. And he doesn't have an issue with Mark, actually. Mark doesn't have issues saying that all the time. It's hilarious. This is my last question. If
Okay.
this is your last day today on this earth,
Hmm.
what would be your parting message to your current and future families, or even people who are listening to your podcast in terms of living life, legacy, and impact?
I guess my final well, I can it be a two-parter? Can I say two things?
Oh, say whatever you want.
I would say if you want happiness, uh, give it to someone else. Like everyone's always searching for happiness. Oh, if I get this new car, it'll make me happy. If I do this, if I become a TEDx speaker, I'll be happy then. Um, you know what? If you want happiness, make someone else happy. Make someone else's day. Help someone who needs help. There's where the real happiness is found. And the second thing I would say is if you've got a roof over your head and water out of the tap, a toilet that flushes, an air con in the summer and heat in the winter, you're living better than kings and queens over the vast majority of human history. You're living like a royal person. So, be grateful. That would be it. If you want happiness, give it to somebody else, and be grateful that if you've got coffee in the morning, wow, and you're living like a king.
Yeah, I am living like a queen right now. For
Or
sure.
a queen, or a queen. Yes.
Still afford makeup, okay? Even though it's inflation. But honestly, thank you so much for that. And I think a lot of people are so, especially in North America, I think we're so programmed to have our happiness based on material things when at the end of the day, you can't take all of that where you go.
Right.
I always put people over profit, and I always put people over anything, and collaboration before competition, because really there's no competition. At the end of the day, we all might be doing the same thing, like you're podcasting and I'm podcasting, but our topic and our environment and our experiences are two different things. So it just adds to the conversation more.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not. A lot of our audience is not going to be exactly the same, and if it is, they're going to just listen to both of us.
Yeah. And then James Patrick, and we're gonna have a hoot. You know, in September, I think we should all have like all the live streamers in here and just talk nonsense. That's for
Awesome.
sure.
Sign me up.
We'll just talk nonsense. Well, thank you so much for your time with me today and getting to know you a little bit more. I know that's not your entire life, but I appreciate you so much. And hang on in the green room, and I'll be right with you. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you guys for being here today. I totally appreciate you, Lonnie, James, Patrick. James and Patrick, I'll see you tomorrow for sure. And thank you so much for Christine. I know that you are, I don't know if you're driving right now or you're already somewhere else, but thank you so much for being here, sis. And sis Susana, watch for that text because I will definitely be calling you. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye. Thanks for watching another episode of Level Up Academy today, brought to you by your none other host, Dr. Leland. Please do not forget to hit subscribe or push that notification bell so anything that we have an activity on at Level Up Academy, you will be the first one to know. If you would like to be a guest in our podcast, both on the MP3, audio only, and also here on live in our YouTube channel, please let me know. DM me. Let's connect. Have a fantabulous day. Bye, guys.